Hey, so what I wanted to do this time is recreate this really nice piece of visual effects that I saw in a game called Ninjala. A lot of games have this, it's just sort of like a nice boundary, when you get to an edge of a city and it doesn't want you to progress anymore, it'll put up a wall. Sometimes there's an invisible wall, but what this game's done is it's basically just create this really nice sort of visual effect, and it only appears when you get close to it. And it's got like this really nice sort of glow. It's quite stylish. I tend to love like hexagon patterns are always really nice. So I'm going to be recreating this, and I'm going to do so using a couple of different pieces of software. So hopefully you can see the whole sort of framework, and I'll try and explain the steps as I'm going. So we start off in Photoshop because I want to get that initial shape. Now, getting that initial shape was actually harder than I first thought it was. Thought it was going to be because it's I don't know. It's a strange shape, kind of like an elongated diamond, and there wasn't any shape presets for that, which is a bit of annoying. I was kind of hoping there would be. So what I had to do was try and create my own, and I tried a couple of different methods for this, and I think in the end I went for combining just like triangles, but again just getting the right height versus like width, because it's easy to create a repeating pattern on something that's a consistent width and height. So you could repeat a pattern of squares super easily, but getting this right was the tricky part. And then I had to recreate the triangle with the exclamation mark too, and I just used the pen tool to create this because it allowed me to go back and edit it and freely do so. Once I was done, I just saved I saved it all as a Photoshop document because I was going to use After Effects. So inside After Effects, I brought in the Photoshop document so I could try and edit the layers. And the reason I'm using After Effects is because it's got an effect in there called repeat tile or reptile, and as you can see, that just allows me to sort of quickly sort of duplicate it, and then I just duplicate the image so I could have an offset value as well. And then I brought in my what are they, triangle exclamation marks, and I knew I wanted those to be able to flash because as you could see in the original video, those are sort of like flashing off and on to give the effect a bit of variation. So what I was going to do, I was going to do two versions, so like I could just flick between the two versions, and with the background. So I exported it as three separate PNGs: the background image and the two switches for the exclamation marks. Now inside Unreal, just created a material and brought all of them in. The material I'm using is additive because I've just used black as my background, and additive takes those zero values and just removes them, because the effect you can see sort of it's transparent, but it does look like it's got a bit of a glow as well. So I'm going to be making use of the emissive. Now the first thing I'm creating is the flick between the two visual effects, the two exclamation marks, and I'm using a NIF for this, and I'm having just a time that's going to period on 1. Every 1 second that's going to just flick between. So if it's less than half a second, it'll be version 1. If it's more than half a second, it'll be version 2. And really, I could have had lots of different versions of these. If this was a more serious project, something I was working on professionally, then I'd have done even more variation on that too. Those are just flicking between. The next thing I do is bring it all together and add a scene fade, but I use scalar parameters on this because it's just the fastest way. When you're working in material instances, especially on my computer, it can be quite slow just rendering out and testing out the images. So I use scalar parameters and create a material instance to test it out. And at this point I've got the screen fade coming off and on, which I was quite happy with. But ultimately, I didn't think the effect itself looked as good as the original. So I better go back to the drawing board and try and recreate my diamonds. Now, initially, I'd actually only seen the YouTube video for this game and not actually played it myself. So a lot of it was just based off that initial YouTube video. But I did, halfway through this video, go download it on the Switch and go have a closer look. at the actual effect, and I could see it was a lot more. I'd created it too diamondy. I think I'd made it too tall, and it didn't make the pattern look as good. So, like I said, I went back into Photoshop and recreated them, and trying to get it so I could actually tile it. So if I used the texture coordinate system in Unreal, it would allow me to repeat the pattern endlessly should I want to. So I've just taken this back into After Effects once I've created it, just to make the images again. And I just, with the exclamation marks, I just put those in quite randomly. So any old which order, just to try and make it look like it's got a nice offset and it is random. Just, this is a case of replacing the images and re-importing. But at this point the scale's a bit wrong, so I just take the texture coordinate out of there. But because they were quite small, because I scaled this down to I think it was 20%, I thought I'd better go back, because it's now repeatable. I could just have it at a much higher resolution, so that way the image would look crisper and sharper, because at 20% it looked quite low res. So I went back into After Effects to improve the scale of it, so it's a higher quality image. The texture I'm using is 1024. I could have gone made a nice 4K texture, and that probably wouldn't have been a problem. Once that's back in, next thing to do was create a texture coordinate system, but I multiplied this by another scalar parameter, so I could take that into my material instance and get the material looking right. And just one more look at the source image for comparison. And ultimately, I'm quite happy with it. Now, when like I say, I went back and actually looked at the original video, and some of the diamonds are flashing as well. That would just be in a case of, like I did with the exclamation marks, duplicating the shape and having a few of them off and on an image. But otherwise, there you go. Hope you've enjoyed that. Thanks for